Ladies and gentlemen, it is your favorite dark sorcerer here. And tonight I want to take the curses and black magic video a step further. You know, I want to take this into what is commonly referred to as demonic possession or spiritual possession for that matter. How can a curse be instigated into a possessive state? Well, let's take a look at this from a few perspectives. The box, for an example, is said to house a demonic entity if one is able to be caught. Even a very hostile or angry spirit can be trapped within one of these boxes and buried, or even utilized. If we go into necromancy, we see the spirit box. Okay. If you go into voodoo, you have the altars, the independent altars of the Loa. Okay. If we go into the Palo traditions or that of Santeria, we have the Naganga, another name for the spirit, the house of the spirits. Okay. And here's what's interesting here, because even in the JCI, we see where the spirit of their god is said to be housed in their churches, in their sanctuary. Okay? So you can see how a spirit can be just about anywhere, okay, or reside anywhere, not just in Christianity or the mainstream Judo Christian institutions, but from other religious traditions as well, such as necromancy, voodoo, Haitian voodoo, Palo Mayumbi, and Monty, okay, and Santeria in itself, okay. Now, not all traditions are the same, okay. So when we're looking at an accursed item, okay, a lot of times you are utilizing runes or a spirit to guard or to watch over that specific item, okay. This could be also a place such as a haunting, okay. A haunting is a great location, is known as the the possession of a place. The place does not really matter. It is more of the fact that when we look at a demonically possessed place, the Annabelle horror, for an example, or a location such as a tomb or a crypt. It can be anything where a demonic spirit, a jinn, or even an angelic being can be kept, not just a reincarnated spirit of a person. And then you have the demonic possession of a spirit. And as I said in my last video, there was this voodoo practitioner that literally revealed the psychological effects of a voodoo doll upon a reporter. Okay, the reporter thought, this young woman thought that she was literally possessed until he showed her the link, the binding solution, or the binding agent, I should say, to the voodoo doll that she gave him. Okay. Now, what's interesting to note is that when we look at demonic possessions or any spiritual possessions, okay, we can go by the Catholic Church, for an example. They break it down into 4 stages, okay? You have the invitation. You have the manifestation. You have the obsession. And then you have the takeover of the host. Okay, this is normally done by their perception as by force. The 5th one The fifth perception is the voluntary possession, allowing a spirit of any kind, an entity of any kind, to enter your body freely and willingly so that you share the same physical figure. Okay? Now, to clarify that, you can literally curse an individual through a spirit or soul of an individual who has died in a violent manner. Perhaps one that is dying of, say, a disease like cancer, maybe even AIDS, whatever it is that's painful, and place it upon a victim. Okay. This is where you can call upon spirits such as Abaddon, Azrael, the angel of death, or that of, say, Alistar, okay, the executioner. And you can literally attach them through a binding solution. My brother, Joseph Nunn, he did a video a while back on a curse that he did, okay? And he brought in Pazuzu, okay? This is an ancient Mesopotamian deity of the harvest, okay? He was always in opposition to Lamashtu, okay? Think of Lamashtu as the modern day Lilith, okay? It was more the fact that he could kill or he can create. It was more often or not he was the pursuing party. Okay, he was more of the hostile one. Lord of the Grasshoppers is what he was referred to, and people literally made amulets and talismans to ward him off. Okay, some even called upon him for a better harvest. Okay, which is why he was known as the Lord of the Harvest. Okay, so in this curse, my brother, Bohemoth X, literally cast a circle of salt, sea salt, with the individual's photo inside. Okay, literally inside. He defaced it, he defiled it, he spat upon it, he cursed it. Okay, this was the actual cursing in itself. The binding was when he made that door and invited Pazuzu to enter and to go forth, and he sent it forth. This is where a spiritual possession can take place. Remember, I said earlier, the invitation. Okay? The invitation is to invite the spirit in. As a demonolator, as a Luciferian, or as a Satanist, a necromancer, you constantly work with spirits. So this is nothing new to somebody like myself or like my brother or those who love to work with spirits. Okay? So when we get into actual spirituality, we're seeing more and more individuals coming in who think that they know what this classification is. And 9 times out of 10, when you look up demonic possession, okay, you're seeing a Christian talking about it, praying about it. Nobody's really discussing it. But yet that other 1% is Hollywood produced films. Okay. You may even get a fraction, maybe 1/10 of that percentage that is based off music. Okay. And that's just right here on YouTube. But nobody really goes into the applications of it. Okay. And here we're going to discuss that just a little bit. And I'm going to be picking on a couple of individuals. Okay. From the JCI perspective. All right. Now, we're going to break this down. When you get into Satanism, necromancy, black magic in general, you're going to learn about the spirits. You're going to learn which ones are used for what technique, okay, or what topic, be it monetary gain, be it a hexcraft for teaching such as Zaniel from the Grimoire of Armadale, to that of, say, let's go with Gabriel from the Grimoire of Armadale as well. Okay, who's known for healing. Even the JCI utilized him within their Bible in the New Testament, the four Gospels, who was also seen as a messenger. Okay, so again, you got the healing and you got the messenger. Okay, application, much like Hermes in ancient Greek. Okay, the messenger god. So the place and the being could also be Abaddon in angelology, or Apollyon for that matter in ancient Greek. You can even go into Norse mythology and you have Hel. Okay, Hel. All they did was add another L to it, and there you have their little demonic fire, brimstone pit. So when we get into this, you can literally see where you have the location, but you also got the being. Knowing the difference between these beings and what they're capable of doing. You see, Samael is known as the poison or the venom. Okay, and in the grimoire known as the Red Book of Appen, he is actually the one that is replaced. Okay, he replaces the ordinary names like Satan or Lucifer. So he's known as the venom of God. Okay, he's right next to Lilith, Astaroth, and Nebulus. Okay, and it's very interesting to see how different grimoires see these beings in different lights. Okay, so summoning a spirit within a form of evocation or invocation of hexcraft or even cursing, you really want to choose what lesson you want to use, what path working you want to use. So if you choose death, you want to go with somebody of death. So you use Supe out of Inca or Anubis out of Egyptian. You may even use Set or Seth out of Egyptian because he's known as the god of storms. He's the god of chaos. He's highly feared and highly respected. So, or that of Hades, the lord of the underworld in Greek. So you can see why there's so many different beings that you can call upon. And these beings for death are just the very tip of the iceberg. I mean, you can go with the Revenant, you can go with the Sith or the Sidi, depending if you're going from the Scottish or the Irish traditions. The Hellhound or the Black Dog, okay, which is said to come in the dead of the night, howling. The Banshee, which predicts death. Okay, the screaming or wailing woman. You can go with the vampire or the ghoul. Okay. Personally, if you really want to do it, go with the zombie. Okay. Haitian Voodoo, the zombie powder. Love it. Okay. Just studying that aspect is fun. Okay. And the possession of it, and this is actually a key figure right here, the possession aspect. The zombie powder, which is made up of three main key ingredients: the gases of toads, the venom or poison, the toxin of tree frogs, and the gallbladder of pufferfish. Okay, these three are the key main ingredients in that powder. So the rest are unique to the individual Bokor. So once you've chosen a target and you've poisoned basically that individual, and if you did it right, they would literally be dead. Their heartbeat would be so low that not even a physician would be able to tell they're alive. Okay, so they would basically be buried, and they would go back in later and bring the person back to life, and they would be and believe that they are zombies. Okay, there's a lot to it, and not just what I just spoke on. I'm not going to get into the full detail of that, namely because there's a lot that goes into it, and I don't have the time tonight to do that. So So, anyways, if they did it right, they would have a zombie. This is a type of spiritual domination. It's a binding of a soul to a physical body. Okay. If you go back into Eliphas Levi, his works, the doctrines of high magic, he had an encounter with a spirit in England, London, and went back to the Kabbalah system. He was so afraid of it because he brought forth a spirit of a reincarnated soul. This is known as a conjuration of a spirit. Okay. And again, you can, once you've conjured that spirit, you can literally bind it to that location through a griscris bag, or you can utilize it through the debunk box or the spirit box. You can invite the spirit to stay with you. There's a lot of different methods. So once you've done this, you can begin to use that spirit. You can direct that spirit to a target. Okay. Now, what's interesting is, as I said before, is part 2 of this. There's a lot of individuals who think that they know about possession, be it self-possession, voluntarily inviting a spirit into you, such as evocation through the occult, or the domineering effect of the hostile takeover of a spirit upon the victim. Curses, hexes, jinxes, they all apply. So when we get into Christianity, I thought I would kind of do a little scripture here, okay, from the JCI point of view, because this is one of the main things that you'll find on YouTube or even Google, for that matter, when you do your own research into it. Christians have the biggest assumptions of what it is, and they always go by the same damn scriptures, and I find it so amusing. For an example, this one guy. Okay, let's go with let's go with David Digga Hernandez. Okay, he did a 2-part video where he supposedly realized that this one person was possessed, and like always, dominating that spirit. Dominating that spirit. Okay. And I want you to pay attention to this. So he literally goes into this whole speech after praying and all that other bullshit. And he goes and he tells these other individuals, hey, this girl's demonically possessed. And we're talking about a kid that's probably not later than early 30s, late 20s. Okay. In these videos. And yes, I'm referring to this Hernandez guy. Okay, that claims to be a online minister. And it's interesting to see because he then went into his little speech in part 1 and then part 2, and he claimed that through certain scriptures you can identify the traits of the demonically possessed. How to think of it as the warning signs is the way he put it. So I tended to listen to this for a little bit, and of course I got cracking up because nowhere in the scripture does it actually go into all this shit. Okay. So the first one he brought up was Mark chapter 5, verses 1 through 16. Mostly he stayed around 5, chapter 5, verse 3 and 4. Okay. So basically, throughout this entire chapter, this one little chapter, he goes into morbid thinking, supernatural ability, violence and barbaric behavior, mental instability, self-harm, comfort in discomfort in God's presence, and still maintain control over decision making. Okay, and this is what he says. Okay, now number 1, that was just 1 through 6. but he added in that seventh one. Okay, he added in that seventh one. Then he goes into Acts chapter 16, verses 16 through 19, and he only pulled one verse out of this, okay? And it was out of verse 17. Chapter 16, verse 17, and he says, contempt for God's authority. Bam. Same old bullshit, right? So then he goes from there into Matthew's, the first of the four Gospels, chapter 17, verses 14 through 16. And all he said about there was that this individual saying that his child was possessed and couldn't help it because he suffered from seizures. So the story, according to him, says that he tossed this child into fire and then into water. Okay, fire and water, the old Sumerian method of forging steel. It was taught by Azazel. Okay, Azazel taught this in the book of Enoch, chapter 1. All right, or book 1, I should say. And the only thing he took out of this was suicidal tendencies. That was it. Suicidal tendencies out of 14, 15, 16 verses. That's 3 verses, and that's all he got. That's all he got out of that. Then he goes into Acts chapter 10, verse 38, and he goes into sickness, the illness effect. 1 Timothy chapter 4, verses 1 and 2. This is where he pulls 2 things out of it. Unbiblical doctrines and manipulative personality. Okay? Manipulative personality and unbiblical doctrines. Now, what I find interesting here at this stage is right here, he's playing the good guy to Anton Sandelavey's bad guy badge. Okay? The first actual doctrine that came out in a reversal was through the Church of Satan, the satanic rituals. Okay. And this is where they started utilizing the Lord's Prayer backwards in reverse. So this is what he's referring to as unbiblical doctrine. Okay. Wow. And the Bible's been around for what, 300 years? This is what you get out of it? Yeah. So unbiblical doctrines and manipulative personality, that can mean so many different things. I mean, literally, so many different things. And then from there, he goes into 1 Samuel chapter 16, verse 14, and he pulls out 3 things: torment, depression, and fear. Okay? So out of all of this, you have 16 traits that he claims is associated as demonically influenced. Okay? And I'm going to go through them so you can understand them from 1 to 16. Morbid thinking, supernatural ability, violence or barbaric behavior, mental instability, self-harm, things like, cutting or bloodletting, which has been around for hundreds of thousands of years. Discomfort in God's presence, addiction, obsession with the occult, contempt for God's authority, suicidal tendencies, sickness, unbiblical doctrines, manipulative personality, torment, depression, and fear. Okay? So this guy's basically a chump trying to make a name for himself. Just like, let's see, what was that guy's name? I actually got to look him up right now. This is the other guy I wanted to talk about, and let me see here. Oh, right here. Bitcoin. Trying to remember the guy's name offhand. He's got his own little ministry going on here, and it's kind of funny because this guy, he preaches a lot on this on YouTube, and I find it so funny because of the fact that every single video, John Ramos, Martinez, rather, John Martinez, that's his name. Okay, this guy in every single video that he's been in claims to have been X something. Okay, and this is a self-professed Christian. Okay, self-professed Christian. He has his own ministry, just like this Hernandez guy. Okay, and he's done a lot of videos on YouTube claiming demonic possession, things that the devil made him do. Okay, how he looked up to his abusive bastard father, okay, who belittled him, who put him down, the whole kit and caboodle. Okay, he got into supposedly his mother took him to a reader, and the lady did a cartomancy read, which is a tarot card read, as it has been in the 19th century. And it's interesting. The woman looked at his mother and said if he was not baptized into Santeria, he would go blind within 3 days. So he ended up getting baptized. He ended up getting all the special herbs and all that little stuff that goes along with that religion. Okay. And he began his journey. He claimed he felt powerful. He claimed he felt instantly as though he had authority for the first time and that he had respect. Respect. From there, after he started training with high level priests and priestesses, the Poleros, okay, within Santeria. From there, he went into things like Kimbiza, more spiritual practices such as Kimbiza and Palo, Mayambi. Now, this is where he literally fucked up, okay, because if he had said Palo Monte, that's spiritualism. That's about healing. Okay. Palo Mayembe is black magic. That's personal gain. And depending on which house you're in has different how should I say this? Pleasures, I guess you can say. One is more personal gain of using black magic, learning curses, hexcraft, spiritual descent, not spiritual descents, but more um, working for power and authority aspects within that tradition. Another house would have something like fetishes, and this is one of the things you'll find on Facebook. Is a lot of these people claim to hold dear to fetishes, okay, which have nothing to do with Palo Mambi, period. So you really have to watch out for this stuff. Okay. So, like I said, in one video, he's talking about his youth, his growing up within this, how he mastered the so called occult, started preying on Christians in particular, going to the night scene, watching out for his mother after his father was fatally killed in a bar fight, who was, and I quote, a warlock. Okay. Within Santeria. Okay. His mother was a medium, okay, supposedly, but yet she can't do the reading herself. You see the issue there? Anyone who's been in the occult knows that you can do readings for yourself, for your family, and for your friends, and for your clients. You just have to put more effort in, okay, than you would for your clients. Now, what's interesting here is that when you go into a different video, he then claims that he was an ex-Satanist. Another video, an ex-devil worshiper. That's demonolatry, by the way. Demonolators, people who choose to work solely with the demonic. Okay. And then in another video, he's being that holy high roller Christian and casting out demons within his little parish. And then he sits there and he's on interviews and popularity contests of pissing contests, basically. Going on these interviews talking about his little childhood, how he the signs of the devil and what the devil made him do and all this other bullshit. But no actual proof of what he supposedly did. Okay? John Ramirez is a fake. He knows nothing about the occult. Because in this one video, the one I told you about him talking about his youth, he literally walks reporters past an occult shop that has multiple things. I'm talking Santa Morte, Saint Death statue in the window. You have a statue of Mary in the window. You have a statue of Baphomet or one of the other deities of pagan religion. Never went inside. In fact, the camera literally never got a clear photo of what was in that window, as in the overall. Okay? Just those three little items. And all he talked about was how Saint Death was sitting right next to Mary. Done. Okay? So you see where the fakes come in. See, somebody like John Ramirez or this Hernandez guy, these are the ones that lead people down a desolate road, lead them into what is known as a cult, not the occult. Now, you remember what I said? Obsession with the occult. That's number 8. Okay? I'm going to show this to you. Okay? I don't know if you can read it or not, but it's right there. Okay? Literally. 16 things. You see, I've been around Christians a lot because of what I do as a minister of the occult. I'm talking Satanism and other traditions. I've sat down with Southern Baptists, and their only intent was to bring you into the fold. I had a conversation about 10 years ago when I moved to Maine with a Baptist from roughly 2, 3 towns away from where I'm at. He had a lot of knowledge for a Baptist. The guy was in his 40s at the time. He's now in his 50s with his wife. Their kids are all grown up. He never tried to enforce his religion. In fact, he literally sat there and discussed it, sought out the truth. See, that's a sign of somebody who's really into what they do and somebody who claims that they're into it. Now, here's the kicker. You get into an apostolic church, and they'll claim that the devil, such as Satan, a watcher angel, is a murderer. Where in the Bible does it say he's a murderer? The only thing it shows is that from the Jewish and Islamic tradition, even the Hebrew, adversary, tempter, accuser, that's it. Hell, the God that they serve has killed more people than smallpox. but yet that's okay in their eyes. Hmm, interesting. And if you don't think or do the way they tell you, you're shunned. Isn't that the same as judge not that ye not be judged? That's chapter 7, verse 1. Verse 2 says, and I quote, before you can remove the speck from your brother's eye, you must first remove the big wooden log from your own. And that's coming from either between a couple of different translations. You have the Teacher's Reference Edition. You have the King James and the New King James. Then you have the Gideon. Okay. You have the NIV, the American. Okay. That's just 6 of them right there. And they're all traced right back to the Vulgate Bible. It's like thou shalt not suffer a witch to live, but yet the original source was thou shalt not allow a murderer to live. Interesting. You claim not to murder, but yet, you know what I'm saying? It's that hypocrisy. So what I find interesting here, especially with these two fakes, is this. Revelations chapter 22, verses 18 and 19. If any man adds or takes away from this book, the same shall be done out of the book of life. Now, just with their own words, isn't that considered unbiblical texts, doctrines? You basically made it your own. Okay? So is that not a form of spiritual or demonic possession? Hmm, could be. It's also known as an attachment. So going back to the original thing of being cursed, cursed objects, cursed places, and cursed locations or people, spirits have been known to persuade people into a different direction. They've been known to guide from beyond the shadows. Anyone who's worked with demons will tell you this. Anyone who's worked with the jinn or the orisha, the loa, will tell you this. They will guide you, they will educate you, and they will bring you closer to who you're supposed to be. Okay? So I want you to think about this. What type of attachment do you have? What type of attachment are you willing to give to somebody else? In this case, people see these two individuals for who they are, fakes. So, in a sense, they've already cursed the hell out of themselves. Okay? They're spewing lies that people are seeing. So, number one, you got the demonic influence right there. They're leading them to the truth of who they really are, fakes and liars, who have no information whatsoever on the demonic or the occult. And at the same time, those who willingly work with them. You look at how good their lives are. There's no drama, there's no chaos, there's no hiccups. I mean, obviously, you're going to have hiccups no matter what you do or where you go. But when I use the term hiccups, I'm talking about what has gone down in history as supposedly witch wars. Okay? Witch wars are childish perceptions, slinging curses like Aleister Crowley to Levy, for example. Supposedly these two got into an argument or something. I don't know. But yet it's there in his own works. When you look them up, you'll see what I mean. There's a lot of these so-called witch wars that have taken place over the last 100 to 200 years. And it's interesting to see just how things have gone from the way what they are to where they are today. Okay? So when you get into witchcraft and you get into any form of sorcery, baneful sorcery, I want you to get into three things. First of all, what is black magic? Two, what is spiritualism? Okay? And three, history, mythology, going hand in hand with your research. I'm talking your research, not my research, but your research. Okay? Because when you start getting into them, you get into the folklore, you get into the old names that go along with folkloric traditions. When you get into the various different styles, you're going to see different things. For an example, when you hear the term witch or witchcraft, what if I told you that the word hexa, that's Haxa, is a Swedish term that represents both? How about the ashi or the aji, the strega? Okay, these are all terms that were used going as far back as the 6th century BC. Okay, that's BC. Church has only been around for a couple thousand years, 2,500 to be precise. Before that, you have Zoroastrianism. Before that, you have the independent proto-cultures. Before that, you have the Paleolithic era. There's a lot of doctrine out there that will show you history and mythology. And I've always said if they don't align, do not believe it. When I first got into necromancy in the tradition that I'm currently in, I had no help. I had no guidance. Okay. For 6 months, I sat there, I studied the books, I studied the material, found out what tower I was going to work with, or towers for that matter. I got into them. I started learning the hierarchy. I started learning who does what, spiritual wise. On occasion, when I went to my elders, I said, hey, this, what would you suggest with this type of ritual? And they would say, okay, I would recommend this or that or whatever. Okay. Do it outdoors instead of indoors, stuff like that. So, or they would recommend, okay, I would recommend this being to go along with it, especially if you're going to be working with this spirit. You see, it's things that you don't think about, which is why you have teachers. And the art of two has been around for hundreds of thousands of years. There's always been a master and an apprentice. It doesn't matter if you're following Hermetics. It doesn't matter if you're going through the pagan traditions, necromancy, shamanism. You're going to have your teachers. Practitioners are feared for a reason. They're respected for a reason. If you want to go with the Wiccan variation of it, go into European, the Wiki, the Wicca, the Wiccan, the double V, the double U, and you'll see why they refer to them as the wise ones, the path of the wise, because they are the individuals who keep the secrets. This is associated with Wiccan, with practitioners of the old, the grimoires, the traditions. They don't just work with the spirits. And I want you to think about some of this because last night I was doing this with my own people, and I'm talking Native American. You see, I happen to be Penobscot, Southern, 25% on my dad's side, which when I found that out after 30 years, well, guess what? Now I understand my spirituality. Okay. Why I've always been spiritual. So here it is. curses are used by natives, but they're also utilized, spoken, verbal, not just by Native Americans, but also by individuals, and you don't even realize it. For an example, and I'm going to bring this up real fast. I have a grimoire right here that I've been writing in, and I want to bring up one of these. Okay, Saco, the Saco curse, Saco, Maine, the curse of Sequando. Probably butchering his name, but it's Squando, who cursed Saco River. Okay, 1931 to 1675. Okay, or how about the curse of there's the I'm not even sure how to pronounce that. It's CHARSC Island, Milford, Connecticut. Okay, cursed by William Kidd, 1699. That was actually an interesting one. The curse of Jacorio, New Hampshire. Okay, 1720s. Okay, for the basically this Native American guy, from what the story said, is he left his child with this family who was quote and unquote not Native American. And the guy supposedly went off on his own. Okay. Left his wife and daughter or child, with this Native American child, okay, to watch over and care for this child. And when this Native American guy returned, they found his son dead. Okay. And the reason for that is because he got his hands on some poisons that were lying around. So obviously it was neglect on the babysitter's part. Okay. Because they weren't watching him. So he retaliated by killing the wife and children of the guy that's supposed to be watching him. And when he returned, found his wife and children dead, he chased him up a mountain where he fatally shot the guy. Okay. And the Native American spoke a curse. So to this day, this particular location has been cursed. Number 4, Clausen's curse, Providence, Rhode Island, 1661. The North burial ground or burying ground. Okay. Wormion. Okay, that's Wamaion. Attacked Clausen. Clausen cursed the Hernandez clan with an odd curse. Okay, right here, some of these names from the 18th century and the 17th century, jeez, all I got to say is I'm glad things are more simplistic these days with pronunciations because I don't know how to pronounce some of these names, and I have to admit that. But the thing is that it was vocal. He basically cursed the entire family line with something called Chain's Chin. Okay, what's been known as the Chain's Chin. And a few days later, the guy died. And since then, his entire family line has perished to something to do with chains and chins. It's interesting, to say the least, which is why they referred to it as the odd curse. Number 5, the curse of Brunswick Springs. This one was very interesting, and this is in Vermont, by the way. There are several springs that converge at this one location, and it was considered to be a spot where the Abenaki used for healing. It had everything from citric acids to minerals and gases and stuff. And a soldier, it doesn't say what soldier, Doesn't say if it was an English soldier, doesn't say if it was a Confederate soldier, doesn't say if it was a blue coat. It doesn't say. It just says and refers to him as being a soldier. Was brought to the Springs by this clan and healed. In return, this soldier came back and took some water and sold it. The Abenaki told him not to. Okay, so the soldier ended up killing this man, leaving his wife a widower. Okay, and the widow, having lost her husband and her child, cursed that land. Now you take a look at this land, and it's the history is amazing, going as far back as the 17th century. Not just that, but the French and Indian War. It's very intriguing because of the fact that a hotel was built there, burned to the ground. A second hotel was built there, fell into the river. During the construction of the third foundation, burned to the ground, and then burned again later on. Today, this land is actually a federal reserve protective sanctuary for Native Americans. Very, very intriguing. Just to see how words can be spoken in curse form. Okay. And it was said that, like I said, he betrayed the clan. The wife of the slain Indian cursed him, the land surrounding that entire area. So you see how curses can be not only a spiritual curse affecting a family lineage, but it's also an object or a location. So, yes, spirits, no matter what tradition you're in, you can do this. It's something that was truly believed to be real. It's not just, well, let me put it to you this way. Have you ever had deja vu? Think about it. Today at work, for an example, same vehicle, make, model, color, within 10 minutes of each other, came through the line. I could have sworn I just dealt those drinks and helped that individual. It was the same exact make, model. Think of it this way: a curse, a generational one, same exact thing. It's like deja vu. Change in. Each member of that family died the same way. A hereditary curse, family curse. The curse of a spring. The entire land. Nobody could profit from it because it was considered hallowed ground. Go back to the early JCI when they first started out. Look at the Bible, for example, the Gospels. What did their supposed Savior do first? I want you to think about this. He literally recruited people. He recruited people who later became known as his disciples. Interesting how the term apprenticeship comes into play within occultism, doesn't it? Think about that. Think about the tools of the practitioner and what you have to offer within these accursed items of witchcraft, sorcery, and the traditions that go along with them. Remember what I said earlier: witchcraft necromancy, divination, and possession. Those are the four main bulletins that identify what witchcraft is to the Catholic Church. The first tradition to be established, going as far back as the Roman Empire. Hmm. Interesting, isn't it? Think about it. And I'll be touching more on this stuff as time goes on. I'm going to be going into each one of these traditions. I'm going to be breaking them down. But for now, I've taken up enough of your time. I want to thank those who have joined in, watched. Thank you. Have a good night.